That is going to bring me to our next law. Thou shalt not drink the last Mountain Dew or break up your dad's cigarettes. Well, the number one rule in my house, I probably should have put this number one, but everybody that came to my house knew this rule. You did not drink dad's last Mountain Dew. Now, I have to give you a backstory. At one point in time, we were a Pepsi family. And then my dad had his heart attack in 1981. So what the doctors told him is that he needed to go from like a darker liquid to a clear liquid. So Dad switched from Pepsi to Mountain Dew. That was the advice that he thought he had heard. Go from a darker liquid to a clear liquid. So we went from Pepsi to Mountain Dew. So the number one rule, don't drink the last Mountain Dew. So if you drank the last Mountain Dew and Dad was coming home that night, you knew you had to get it. In those days, Mountain Dew came in these glass bottles. And some of you remember getting these. You get them in the little case, and then when you were done, you put them back in the case, and you'd walk them back down the sidewalk. You take them to the store, you drop them in and get the deposit back, and usually you got taken off the other amount. The biggest argument in our house was who's going to go get it. Well, Mom didn't drink pop. She wasn't going to run us down here. My sister was like, I'm not doing it, so who wanted the pop the most? This guy, and plus, I probably drank the last Mountain Dew. So I remember I would go, okay, I'll go do it. So I dig through my mom's purse underneath all the Kleenexes and spearmint wrappers. And everybody's mom had like 1,000 Kleenexes in there. Am I right? I mean, everybody always had to dig through those Kleenexes. And I'd get in their wallets, and I'd pull out the money, and I'd go on the front porch. And we usually kept them on our front porch. And I'd grab those cases. We usually had 16 of them, 8 and 8. So I'd grab them, my little scrawny arms, and I'd pick them up, and I'd cruise on down Jackson Street, right to the classes. I was like John Travolta. I was really the bottle's clinging, had my little strut going on, little scrawny arms, little suntan going on, walking down, easy trip, walk into classes, put those in the cart, make eye contact with the cashier, like, hey, two, and then I would go down the aisle, and then I would get the two more things of pop because I knew Dad was going to be home. So I go get them, and this time they were a little bit heavier, and your little scrawny arms weren't so, John Travolta-ish then. So you walk up to the cashier, and you have to lift it up and put on the little conveyor belt. They charge you, give them the money, and then you'd have to get it, and then it'd be like this. Then you'd have to walk out the classes doors, which you had to really kind of do one of these things and hope somebody was there. And then the cruise down Jackson Street was much more like this. You all can relate to how to do this. It wasn't as fun. I'd get about halfway down Jackson Street. I'd have to put the bottles down. That cardboard had ripped into my hands. Like my poor little scrawny arms had never felt such pain. And then you have that red stripe right across the palms. And you're like, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. You have to stretch out your hands and you get your arms going. So then I go back down, get that moment of like, okay, I'm halfway there. So you grab it. And I get a little bit slower. Get to the front porch. Set it right at the front porch. Oh my God, my hands, your poor little hands just had that. Who knew cardboard could do much damage? So, it's like, man, I got to get these inside. So then I would muster it up, get it in there, go out, get to the door, got to set it back down, open back up the door, kind of scoot them in. Then getting in the refrigerator was even more fun. Because you had to lift it up. We had a double refrigerator, so I'd have to kind of, get a momentum going. But then my reward was, I remember you'd get oh, I got to have a drink. So you get a glass out, and you break open that ice and put it in there, and then you get the bottle opener and pop that up and hear that, and then you pour it in there and hear that fizz. It was like one of the best moments of your life eating those Mountain Dews. Well, my dad, many times, I think that's probably one of the least rules I broke, was I made sure there was always one Mountain Dew because, I knew that was a Peter John moment if I got that. Well, in those days, smoking was a huge, everybody smoked. your parents probably smoked, your grandparents smoked, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your teachers. On TV, everybody smoked. Cartoons, they even smoked. Everybody smoked. Well, I can remember one of my earliest memories of smoking was my mom smoked at that time. I'm 3 years old. 3 years old again. Lots of memories at 3 years old. And my mom smoking in the kitchen because she smoked in the house. And she laid her cigarette down on the dryer because our dryer is in the kitchen. So she set it down, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to be hilarious. I've got a funny line. So I have this in my head, and I have this all imagined of how it's going to go. Well, my mom sets it down. She has her back turned, and I grab the cigarette, 3 years old, and I say to my mom, hey, you want to smoke? Then I take a big old puff, and then I do this. Well, my mom, because she didn't know CPR or anything, she goes, whoa, right in the back. That ain't going to help anything. Then she grabs my sippy cup. This is the actual sippy cup. Now, these sippy cups don't have any lid. And remember, those of you that have these, remember your parents when I say, don't spill it, and you're like 2 years old and barely walk? You're like, don't spill it. Well, my mom pours Pepsi into it, because remember, we're Pepsi at that time, not Mountain Dew. And she gives me Pepsi to drink to try to get me to recover from my smoking. So she smacks me and gives me Pepsi. Now, apparently it worked, but it also scarred me from drinking Pepsi. And also from ever smoking, because I haven't smoked since. Also, in the 80s, it became very, very, very popular to try to brainwash the kids of the United States to tell their parents to quit smoking. Those of you that grew up in the 80s probably remember this. They always had the Great American Smoke Out. I don't even hear much about it now, but they were like trying to get people to quit smoking. And they would always show those gruesome pictures of like the black lung and the lung that hasn't been smoked. And you're like, oh my God, my parents, they're going to die, you know. So I would always be like, oh, my dad, you know, and they talk about cancer and heart attacks and all this other stuff. And it's like, it scared us to death. And so I remember one day taking that to heart. So I'm at home, I watch TV, and I'm sitting in the recliner next to my dad's ashtray. And he's not home, he's on the road, and he has a full pack of cigarettes. Pack of Marlboros, red package, the plastic wrapped around it and everything. And I was like, I wonder what the cigarette looks like up close. So I grab a cigarette out and I snap it. And I'm like, ooh, that felt kind of good. I'm going to help Dad quit smoking today. So I put it in the ashtray. I get the next cigarette out, snap it, put it in the ashtray. I snapped the entire bunch of cigarettes. I even dissected one of them to see what the filter looked like and what the tobacco looked like, because I just was curious. So I took all of these cigarettes and put them in the ashtray. And I thought, Dad will never smoke again. Well, Dad comes home that night, off the road, probably tired, and I hear this. Peter John, get in here! Well, when I heard the Peter John, I knew what it was about. I knew it was about the cigarette. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, what can I tell him? What can I tell him? What can I tell him? So I'm going, yes, Dad? Did you break these cigarettes? And I was being honest. I said, yes. Yes, I did, Dad. Why did you do that? You know, and he probably said a few other words with that. So I go, well, and this was one of my greatest performances of all time. Well, Dad, at school, we're talking about parents quitting smoking and how it affects your body. And lungs can get really black. And I really want your lungs to be clear. And you've already had a heart attack, and that scares me. And I don't want you to die because you smoke. And I'm just really scared. Well, my little performance worked because my dad says this to me, he goes, well, don't do it again. That's just a waste of money. So I got out scot-free, and then I go, Dad, I promise I won't do it again. So I made that promise to my dad. Well, a few years later, I broke that promise. Because my dad is supposed to, he had to quit smoking because he was having a surgery, but I found his cigarettes in the garage hidden. So I decided I was going to be a smarty pants and break them. That time, the cuteness wore off, and I got in some major trouble for that one. So, if you ever come to my house, make sure there's at least one Mountain Dew left, because that has always been the rule, and it's still kind of the rule to this day.